In contrast, Penny Turner was undernourished, short, and thin. Forget pulling someone out of the water, she probably couldn't even carry someone on dry land. Susie Morgan, seeing things weren't going her way, yelled angrily, "My Penny saved her." Don't be fooled by that shrew Holly Lewis. Bernard Turner arrived then, glaring at Holly Lewis. "Holly Lewis," he snarled, "your family forced your daughter to jump into the river because of a broken engagement, and now you want to drive my Penny to death. I'll report you to the police and have you paraded through the streets." At this, everyone turned to look at the couple. Yesterday, everyone had said Diana Dawson committed suicide by jumping into the river. The couple, believing it to be true, endured the mockery without protest, fearing they'd be reported and imprisoned or sent to a labor camp. But now, they showed no fear. Dylan Dawson's face darkened. "Your daughter not only lied about saving Lily but also slandered my Diana, claiming she jumped into the river to kill herself. If the police come, they'll arrest her." Bernard and Susie Turner insisted that whatever Penny said at the Dawsons' house was due to Diana's intimidation. Dylan and Holly Lewis, of course, refused to accept this. The two sides argued fiercely, and would have come to blows if the villagers hadn't intervened. Even Captain Dawson's threat to deduct work points had no effect. The Turners adamantly believed Penny was the rescuer. The stakes were too high. Today it was white rabbit candy, malt, and a large piece of meat. Tomorrow, there would surely be more. Therefore, the person who saved Lily had to be their Penny. Seeing the couple's intransigence, Captain Dawson finally voiced Thea Dawson's earlier suggestion: "If you're so sure Penny saved Lily, fine. Let Penny save her again, right here in front of us." Bernard Turner was confused. "What do you mean?" After Captain Dawson explained, Bernard Turner readily agreed. "Dylan Dawson, Holly Lewis, you just wait and see how my Penny saves her. You'll be eating your words." Holly Lewis was displeased. "Captain, Penny Turner already admitted she didn't do it. What's the point of this? Isn't this just a lot of unnecessary fuss?" Captain Dawson replied, "It was Diana's idea." Seeing his wife about to protest further, Dylan Dawson pulled her aside and whispered, "If Penny Turner can't save her, no one will accuse us of selling our daughter anymore." Currently, both sides were convinced they were right. Bernard and Susie Turner were adamant that Penny had saved Lily, and this couldn't stop others from boasting. Holly Lewis worriedly said, "What if that brat actually manages to save her? She won't. How could a scrawny child like that possibly save Lily, who was heavier than her?" He hadn't expected Penny Turner to be so wicked, not only taking credit but also making up lies. He had felt sorry for the girl before, but now she seemed just as vile as Susie Morgan. Thea Dawson had just finished cooking when her parents returned. Seeing Holly Lewis with disheveled hair and bruises on her face and neck, Thea Dawson asked darkly, "Mother, did you fight with Penny Turner's mother?" Holly Lewis exclaimed, "How did you know?" Her husband had said their daughter was becoming smarter, and it seemed to be true. Holly Lewis continued, "That hag cursed us and claimed Lily was saved by her Penny Turner. I spat at her. A thieving woman like her can't raise anything good." Thea Dawson fetched water for her mother to wash her face and hands. As Holly Lewis washed, she said, "Captain Dawson said you suggested making Penny Turner go into the water and save Lily in front of everyone, Diana. What if she actually does it?" "Don't worry, she can't be saved." Despite saying this, Holly Lewis remained uneasy, but it wasn't long before a child shouted, "Go to the riverbank. Go to the riverbank." Seeing a crowd cheerfully heading towards the riverbank, Thea Dawson was speechless. They acted as if something joyous was happening. Captain Dawson wanted to resolve this quickly. Firstly, it involved his granddaughter. Secondly, he didn't want the two families brawling and disrupting the entire village. Thirdly, he feared Bernard Turner would actually go and file a complaint. So he quickly found Bradley Holloway, the simple-minded boy in the village, and then called a few people to the riverbank. Unexpectedly, everyone was fixated on this incident, and upon hearing the news, they all rushed to the riverbank to watch the commotion. At this moment, Bernard Turner glared fiercely at Penny Turner and said, "Later, you must save her. Otherwise, I'll beat you to death. If you save her, I won't hit you again." If she could prove herself by saving Sean Dawson's girl, she would receive countless benefits in the household and wouldn't be beaten anymore. Penny Turner nodded like a pecking chicken. Arriving at the riverbank, Susie Morgan, upon seeing that the person going into the water was Bradley Holloway, the village's notorious simpleton, immediately protested, "How can this be? How can Bradley Holloway go in the water? My Penny is a young woman. This will ruin her reputation. What will we do then?" Captain Dawson had always been annoyed by this family. Holly Lewis, with her sharp tongue, loved taking advantage of others, but she was efficient. Susie Morgan, on the other hand, was corrupt and her hands weren't clean. Hearing this, he couldn't help but retort, "Although Bradley Holloway is 13 years old, he doesn't understand anything. What trouble can he cause? If you're not willing, then find someone yourself. Whose daughter would let people watch her fall into the water at 15 or 16? Bradley Holloway, due to a high fever at 8 years old and delayed treatment, suffered brain damage, his IQ permanently stuck at 8. However, he could eat without working, and at 13, he weighed 80 Gene, 40 kilograms. Captain Dawson promised 5 yuan, and his mother immediately agreed. Chris Dawson led Bradley Holloway to the exact spot where Lily Dawson had fallen into the water and called out, "All right." Based on the prior agreement, they had to wait until Penny Turner got closer before letting Bradley Holloway go in, so as to avoid any unforeseen circumstances. Seeing Penny Turner standing motionless, Dawson's eldest sister-in-law nudged her and urged, "What are you worried about? Hurry up and save her." Penny Turner felt as if her legs weighed 1,000 pounds with each step forward. Dawson's eldest sister-in-law was so furious she wanted to push her into the river, but fearing it would ruin things, she held back. A villager watching the commotion couldn't help but laugh. If she had been this hesitant yesterday, the drowning person would have been dead before she even touched the water. The surrounding people agreed. A drowning person couldn't endure a single second's delay, let alone such prolonged inaction. Hearing the crowd's words, Holly Lewis's anxiety and unease settled down. This was right. Diana must have been saved by now. Susie Morgan angrily yelled, "Penny, you brat, what are you doing? Hurry up and save her. If you keep dawdling, I'll beat you to death." Penny Turner, standing on the bank, trembled with fear upon hearing this and hesitantly stepped into the water. This side was the deep end, the water reaching her knees even near the shore. After swallowing several mouthfuls of water, Penny Turner was forced to stand up, coughing incessantly. The villagers watching from the bank were momentarily speechless. Elder Dawson, struggling to hold the 176-pound woman, yelled, "Nancy Dawson, head of the Turners, can you hurry it up a bit?" Thea Dawson whispered to Holly Lewis, "Mother, go help her." At noon, Penny Turner had claimed she knew how to swim. Thea Dawson suspected that even if the other girl did know how to swim, her skills were certainly not proficient. Upon hearing these words, Holly Lewis immediately went down and pulled Penny Turner forward. Penny Turner struggled in fear, "Let go of me, let go." Holly Lewis, already prepared, held her firmly and pulled her forward. After a few steps, she forcefully pushed her towards Elder Dawson. Everyone then saw Penny Turner flail in the water, taking 2 strokes before turning back towards the shore. However, before she could reach the bank, she began to sink, her survival instincts causing her to scream for help. The villagers watching. Holly Lewis couldn't help but laugh, "Didn't you say you saved Lily? Is this how you save someone?" Captain Dawson only thought Penny Turner was too weak to save someone and bring them ashore. He hadn't considered that she would dare claim to have saved someone after only managing a couple of dog paddles. Dylan's family, quickly get her out before this turns into a tragedy. Holly Lewis pulled Penny Turner in. Seeing his wife soaked, Dylan Dawson quickly took off his shirt and covered her, then called out to Thea Dawson, "Diana, let's go home." Now that it was confirmed that Diana was the true rescuer, there was no need to stay any longer. The captain and Sean Dawson's family could handle the rest. Bernard Turner slapped Penny Turner across the face, knocking her to the ground. Not satisfied, he kicked her. "I'm going to beat you to death today, you disgraceful embarrassment." The way he was hitting her looked less like he was disciplining his daughter and more like he was attacking an enemy. Captain Dawson quickly intervened. "Bernard Turner, what are you doing? The child made a mistake, take her home and teach her a lesson. You'll kill her like this." Bernard Turner spat. "She humiliated me like this, beating her to death wouldn't be excessive." Thea Dawson said scornfully. She admitted at noon that she didn't save anyone. "It was your greed, wanting more reward, that forced her into this. Now that the truth is out, you beat her. People like you don't deserve to be parents. Who the hell are you to lecture me?" After saying this, he clenched his fist and lunged at her. Some villagers quickly stepped in to stop him. Daring to threaten his daughter right in front of him, Dylan Dawson raged, "Let him go, I want to see how capable he is, daring to hit my daughter." At Captain Dawson's roar, the villagers released Bernard Turner. Holly Lewis scolded Thea Dawson, "Are you stupid? That little wretch almost got our whole family in trouble, and you're defending her. Besides, that girl is wicked, she won't appreciate your help, she'll probably resent you for it." Thea Dawson didn't argue. She wasn't helping Penny Turner, she just couldn't stand Bernard Turner's behavior. Penny Turner wasn't good, but someone like Bernard Turner was even worse. Holly Lewis arrived home to find 3 dishes and a soup set on the table: spicy chili fried soybeans, scrambled eggs with chives, cucumber salad, and bitter melon and egg soup. Ignoring Thea Dawson's scolding, she rushed into the kitchen, relieved to find the cupboard perfectly intact. She then turned back and asked, "Where did these eggs come from?" Every day, she collected the eggs and put them in the cupboard, locking it for fear Toby Dawson would sneak some. Thea Dawson replied, "From the chicken coop, Mother. I know we have it tough and need to save, but we can't just eat cucumbers and bitter melon every day. We're not fussy, but Father works so hard every day, his body will break down if this continues." Eggs were only 3 cents apiece, and the money she'd earned was enough to eat for years, but unfortunately, Holly Lewis hadn't given her a single cent. Thea Dawson regretted not keeping some for herself yesterday. Dylan Dawson, deeply touched by his daughter's thoughtfulness, said, "My dear wife, Diana is just looking out for my health. Don't be angry." Holly Lewis retorted angrily, "Who do I toil so hard for if not for this family?" Thea Dawson said with a smile, "We all know how hard you and Father work, so we want you to eat better. Don't worry, Mother, our lives will only get better from now on." Looking at her smiling daughter, Holly Lewis's anger dissipated. "Tammy Dawson, from now on, you'll cook. Don't let your older sister cook anymore." If they kept eating like this, she felt her family would eat themselves into ruin. Toby Dawson was the first to object, saying, "No. Big sister's cooking is delicious." Holly Lewis rapped him on the head with her chopsticks. "Of course it was delicious with all that oil and eggs used, don't talk nonsense. From now on, Tammy Dawson will cook." Tammy Dawson obediently accepted, not contradicting her mother. Besides, of all her children, only Toby Dawson was greedy and lazy, the rest were obedient and hardworking. Her only imperfection was that they were all daughters, with no son to carry on the family name. Finding a suitable husband to take their family name was easier said than done. Thea Dawson placed a piece of egg in Holly Lewis's bowl and said, "Don't worry, Mother. When I start earning money, I'll make sure you have so much meat and eggs you won't be able to eat it all." Holly Lewis scoffed, "Meat and eggs every day? That's for rich officials' wives. I don't have that kind of luck. Diana, I don't need those things. I just hope you all find good homes and never have to worry about food or clothing. Don't worry, Mother, we will. Just a few more years until the reforms, and life would get better for everyone. After dinner and cleaning up, Thea Dawson started teaching her younger sisters to read. Nancy Dawson, uninterested, declared, "This is useless. I'm not learning. I'm going to bathe." You can't force a cow to drink, so Thea Dawson let her go. The remaining three, however, were made to stay and study. She started by writing the numbers 1 to 10, which served as a review for Tammy Dawson, who had learned them before. Holly Lewis asked, somewhat puzzled, why has that girl suddenly started teaching Tammy Dawson and the others to read? Diana had taught them for a while, but Nancy Dawson and Tammy Dawson had shown no interest, so she stopped after a year. It wasn't that Diana didn't want to teach, but juggling her own studies, teaching the younger children, and doing chores was simply too exhausting. Dylan Dawson said, knowing a few words is good. Initially, Thea Dawson learned from Granny Daisy, though the lessons were free, they impacted Daisy's work. Holly Lewis wasn't pleased, but Dylan Dawson saw it as beneficial and agreed. His support was crucial, otherwise, Diana wouldn't have finished elementary school. Holly Lewis nodded. A literate child had better marriage prospects. Seth Rollins's high bride price was clearly because his daughter was a high school graduate, a significant advantage. After mastering the alphabet and numbers, Toby Dawson softly told Thea Dawson, elder sister, your teaching style has changed. For example, with the character 4-1, she previously just told them it represented 1. Now, she'd say, 1 is not 1 piece of candy. This made memorization quicker. This way, it won't be so dry for them. Toby Dawson, reflecting, agreed. The Riverside incident confirmed Thea Dawson's role in the rescue. Though explained, the Sean Dawson family remained anxious, gathering after dinner to discuss the matter. Jasmine Malone lamented, I gave them too much, now it's all gone to waste. She wasn't truly upset about the material loss, nothing compared to her daughter's life. She'd worried that the gifts would fuel the Turners' greed, but hadn't contradicted her husband. Lily Dawson frowned, saying, who knew Penny was so bold as to lie? Mother, since it's confirmed Diana saved her, we should apologize to their family. Jasmine Malone explained, I already retrieved most of what we gave the Turners. If we go now with thanks and less than we offered before, Holly Lewis will never let it go. A quiet apology wouldn't suffice. Holly Lewis loved to gossip, and Jasmine feared becoming her constant topic. She wanted to wait for her third child's return. Lily Dawson considered, we have that bag of candy, some seafood, and I have $50. Shouldn't that be enough? Her $50 was a combination of New Year's money and allowance she'd saved. Dawson's eldest daughter-in-law felt a pang of annoyance. That candy was meant for her children. Jasmine Malone immediately refused, no, we can't give money. $50 now will only embolden her greed. Gifts were acceptable, but money was out of the question. Holly Lewis was notoriously greedy, giving money would invite future extortion. The life debt compelled them to offer something, but their resources weren't infinite. Lily Dawson, frustrated, muttered, if not this, and not that, then what? Staying home wasn't an option, it would be wrong on every level. Just then, a voice boomed from the doorway, little sister, what's the problem? Seeing Kofi Dawson stride in, Lily Dawson's frustration vanished. Their resourceful third brother's return meant a solution was at hand. Kofi Dawson, having first gone to the kitchen for a drink of water, returned to the main house. I was planning to leave tomorrow, but after thinking carefully about Lily falling into the river, something doesn't seem right. We must investigate whether it was truly Penny who saved her. Lily slipped while retrieving her hat and fell into the river, and Diana Dawson jumped in at the same time to commit suicide. What a coincidence. Furthermore, he remembered Penny Turner as small and frail. Could such a body truly save Lily? This matter was suspicious, and he had to investigate. He couldn't let his family misplace their gratitude. Lily Dawson gave a thumbs up. Third brother is the sharpest. Third brother, it's been confirmed that it wasn't Penny who saved me, but Diana. Brother, how could Penny do such a thing? Kofi Dawson thought to himself, as expected, there are no such coincidences in this world. Naturally, it's a scheme for benefits. Everyone in the village knows how much our parents cherish you. Whoever saved you would surely be taken care of by them later. Knowing the full story, Kofi Dawson was utterly astonished. You mean Diana came to our door this afternoon to talk about this, and even suggested having Penny Turner jump into the water to prove her lie? Lily Dawson nodded. Exactly. I was also surprised. Before, Diana wouldn't even dare to look us in the eye. This time, she not only came to reveal the truth but almost got into a fight with fifth brother. Neil Dawson, displeased, looked up and said, "What do you mean, almost got into a fight?" She was clearly being sarcastic and provocative. Remembering the afternoon's events, resentment welled up inside him. Looking down on him again. Where did she get the right to look down on him? Kofi Dawson knew his younger brother's temper all too well. His straightforwardness often put him at a disadvantage. But in his impression, Diana was an honest girl. He couldn't believe how much she had changed in such a short time. Fifth brother, you were the one who started it, accusing Diana of coming to swindle us. Jasmine Malone, seeing the twins arguing again, said with a headache, "Stop the noise. Jianyu, tell me, what gifts should I prepare?" The malt sugar and milk candies we brought back yesterday were all given to the Turners. The gifts for the Dillons certainly can't be less than that, otherwise Holly Lewis will gossip. Kofi Dawson felt this wasn't a difficult matter at all, and said with a smile, "Isn't Diana about to get married? Mother, tomorrow you can go to town with me and buy her some bedding and other wedding necessities." As soon as he finished speaking, everyone fell silent. Seeing the awkward atmosphere, Kofi Dawson asked, "What's wrong? If you feel it's not enough, we can add a red envelope when she gets married." Sean Dawson took a couple of puffs from his pipe and said softly, "Diana's engagement is broken off." That Turner girl said Diana jumped into the river to kill herself, and Dillon and his wife believed it and immediately went to the Sher family to break off the engagement. Dawson's eldest sister-in-law added, official Sher didn't want to break off the engagement and even went to their house to persuade Diana, but he ended up getting his head bashed in and bleeding. Jianyu, she came to our door today and said a lot of things, clearly trying to take advantage of us. Jianyu, you should stay away from her. The fifth son would be going off to university in 2 months, and the fourth son wasn't home. Only the third son remained unmarried. Dawson's eldest sister-in-law wanted her cousin to marry Kofi Dawson, so she was particularly sensitive. Kofi Dawson asked curiously, if Diana didn't want to marry, breaking off the engagement would suffice. Why would she resort to violence? Jasmine Malone agreed with her eldest daughter-in-law, saying, "We don't know the exact situation at their house. But after that broken engagement, it'll be hard for Diana to find a good marriage. It's best you avoid her for now, since you're not married yet." They'd tried to find someone for their son for years, but Kofi Dawson was picky and hadn't chosen anyone, worrying his parents. Kofi Dawson saw everyone overthinking, but it wasn't the place to say much. "Father, Mother, this needs to be done quickly. We'll go to Uncle Dillon's now. What should we bring?" Kofi Dawson said, "Didn't I bring back some seafood last time? We'll take some of that and a bag of milk candy. We're mainly going to thank them, the gifts are secondary." These things certainly weren't enough, but they could add more later. Jasmine Malone said unhappily, "You're spoiling them. This will be endless trouble later." Kofi Dawson, very displeased, retorted, "So what about that girl? We're not going to thank her." Jasmine Malone didn't argue further. When Sean Dawson and his wife arrived with their 2 sons, Thea Dawson was teaching her 3 younger sisters to read. Hearing Lily Dawson's voice, Toby Dawson nearly jumped with joy. "Sis, it's Lily." Sis, let me open the door for Lily and Auntie. Entering, Lily Dawson saw the three sisters huddled on the floor and asked curiously, Diana, what are you doing? Just teaching them a few words to pass the time. Lily Dawson crouched down, looking at Thea Dawson's handwriting in astonishment. Diana, your writing is so beautiful. Thea Dawson smiled. She'd started practicing calligraphy with her grandfather at 6, continuing until high school became too demanding. She'd resented the lost playtime as a child, but later became grateful for his dedicated teaching. Inside, seeing Dylan Dawson and his wife, Kofi Dawson said apologetically, Uncle Dylan, Aunt Holly, I'm so sorry we're only now coming to thank you. Holly Lewis, rather generously, lit an oil lamp in the room. Dylan Dawson waved his hand, saying, how can we blame you? That Turner's girl was audacious, pulling off such a deception. Thankfully, the truth is out, and our Diana's name is cleared. The marriage to the Rollins family weighed on their conscience, they felt they'd wronged their daughter. Otherwise. Hearing this, Jasmine Malone said with a laugh, Brother Dylan is right. That girl seemed so proper, who would have thought she was so wicked? Not only did she lie, but she also slandered Diana. Thankfully, the matter was investigated. Otherwise, who knows what would have happened if that girl had gotten close to her daughter. Lily Dawson took Thea Dawson's hand, saying gratefully, Diana, thank you. If it weren't for you, I would be dead. You're my good sister now, and I'll always share what I have with you. Jasmine Malone's heart leaped. What nonsense was this girl saying? Thea Dawson paid no attention to these words. Anyone could speak sweetly, she wanted real benefits. Lily, you're a city girl now. I'm just a country bumpkin, not fit to be your sister. Lily Dawson was her original name, a fact unknown to most of the village. Moreover, Lily and Neil Dawson had previously ignored the original Thea's attempts at conversation. Clearly, in Lily's eyes, she and Diana weren't on the same level. Lily Dawson was at a loss for words. Kofi Dawson sensed Thea Dawson had something on her mind. Intrigued, he asked, Diana, I recall you earned a junior high certificate, didn't you? Yes, I did 2 years ago. But without connections, it's just a fancy title. Kofi Dawson, having just received some news, said, I heard from a friend that teacher Melissa Bailey from our commune is returning to the city. The school is short of teachers, so the commune will be sending more, but there's an exam. Teacher Bailey, grateful for her time in the countryside, wouldn't stay now that she had the chance to return to the city. Holly Lewis, overjoyed, asked, Are you saying my Diana could become a teacher at the commune's elementary school? Kofi Dawson couldn't guarantee anything, saying, My friend said the posting requires a junior high certificate or higher, which Diana has. But nothing's set in stone, I need to inquire further. His friend had mentioned this specifically because Lily Dawson, having graduated high school this year, was looking for work. A job was worth more than any gift. Holly Lewis felt Kofi Dawson was a good man. Jianyu, this would be a great help. If our Diana could teach, you'd be our family's benefactor. Dylan Dawson was also thrilled. Becoming a teacher meant escaping the rural life and its hardships. Thea Dawson thought Kofi Dawson was clever, no wonder he had a comfortable job at the transport company. But she wasn't interested in teaching. Firstly, she lacked the patience, and secondly, teacher salaries were notoriously low. Still, if factory work wasn't an option, teaching for a couple of years as a transition wouldn't be so bad, it beat working the fields. Thea Dawson asked directly, Kofi Dawson, what are the benefits for an elementary school teacher at the commune? Jasmine Malone glared at her son, but with Dylan Dawson's family present, she held her tongue. Holly Lewis smacked her daughter. Why so many questions? Any amount is better than toiling in the fields. Kofi Dawson was surprised by her calm demeanor. This was a job many coveted. If not for the broken engagement caused by saving Lily, he wouldn't have mentioned it. Thea Dawson was resolute. Mother, this concerns my future. I must be clear. His friend, wanting to do him a favor, had been quite clear. Kofi Dawson replied, 10 work points daily, 6 yuan monthly for the first half year, then 10 yuan monthly after. 10 work points just during the school term, or year-round. Kofi Dawson looked at her and said, no holidays, 10 work points every day. Holly Lewis, fearing Thea Dawson would do something foolish, interjected, Jianyu, when is the exam? Let me know, and I'll go with Diana. I'm not entirely sure about this, but if everyone agrees, I'll make inquiries. Thea Dawson nodded and said, I'll give it some serious thought. Kofi Dawson said with a smile, Diana, I'll be home for the next 2 days. Think it over carefully and let me know. Auntie, it's getting late, we should head back. Holly Lewis suddenly became overly enthusiastic, leaving so soon. Stay a bit longer. Despite their insistent pleas to stay, Sean Dawson and his family left. Once they were gone, Holly Lewis raised her hand to strike Thea Dawson, but Thea, anticipating this, dodged. Holly Lewis lowered her voice and scolded, is your brain filled with water? Such a good opportunity falls into your lap, and you still need to think. Think about what? Starting tomorrow, you'll hit the books, and you will pass that exam. Dylan Dawson added, Diana, a teacher earns 10 work points a day, the same as your father, and not only that, but there's also $10 a month. Once you secure this job, finding a husband will be much easier. Thea Dawson knew that in their eyes, this was a godsend, so she didn't want to argue with them. Father, mother, it's late, and I'm tired. You two should go to bed as well. Holly Lewis wanted to say more, but Thea Dawson had already turned and left. Their father, that girl didn't listen to a word we said. What are we going to do? Dylan Dawson also understood that this was a good opportunity, but Thea Dawson's lack of enthusiasm left them worried and helpless. I'll talk to her again tomorrow. Holly Lewis had no other choice but to hope her daughter wouldn't be stubborn. Back at their home, Sean Dawson's family settled in, and Jasmine Malone called Kofi Dawson into her room. Lily Dawson hesitated for a moment before following. Jasmine Malone's face was serious. The commune elementary school is looking for a teacher. Such a big opportunity, and you didn't tell us, offering it to outsiders instead. Do you even have any respect for your father and me? Kofi Dawson, anticipating his parents' disapproval, explained, a friend just mentioned it yesterday. Mother, Diana nearly died saving Lily, and her engagement was broken off. Uncle Dylan's family suffered because of it. Just offering compensation isn't enough. Lily Dawson nodded in agreement. Mother, older brother is right. If Diana can teach at the elementary school, I can consider my life debt repaid. Jasmine Malone said angrily, I've already considered this. She's 17. Arranging a respectable marriage for her and providing a generous dowry is more than enough. Lily Dawson felt uneasy. Mother, you can know a person's face, but not their heart. What if the person you choose isn't good? Wouldn't that be our fault? Letting Diana teach at the commune elementary school is a much safer option. No one can guarantee a good marriage, but with a job, as long as one works hard, life won't be bad. Jasmine Malone's expression hardened, then she sighed, Lily, your second sister-in-law also graduated from middle school. There's such a good opportunity now, and instead of giving it to your second sister-in-law, we give it to an outsider. What do you think your second brother and sister-in-law will think? Lily Dawson hadn't considered that. Kofi Dawson spoke frankly, Mother, by helping Diana secure this job, Lily will have a justifiable reason to refuse any future requests from their family. Pausing, he added, Mother, I initially got into the transport company thanks to Uncle Kwong's influence. It was because his younger sister saved old Mrs. Kwong that Uncle Kwong allowed him into the company. His sister only took her to the hospital. Diana, in saving his sister, not only nearly died but also had her engagement broken off. If things hadn't been handled well, the Kwong family would have thought poorly of them. Click, click, Sean Dawson, puffing his cigarette, said, Diana doesn't seem to want to go. If she won't, can your second sister-in-law go instead? Kofi Dawson refused, that's not possible. Helping Diana Dawson was to repay the favor of his sister being saved. Helping Melissa Bailey, with all the money and effort involved, wouldn't even earn a word of gratitude. He wasn't without self-respect. Jasmine Malone, her eyes red-rimmed, pleaded, Kien Nak, your second sister-in-law hasn't been good in the past, but for your second brother's sake, don't hold it against her. Not hold it against her. How could he not? 4 years ago, when Chris Dawson married Melissa Bailey, they not only cleaned out his parents' savings but also swindled all the wages he'd sent home. He hadn't held that against them, but he'd placed a sewing machine in the main house for the women to use. Melissa Bailey pointed at him and accused him of shamelessly coveting her dowry, then spread the story everywhere. He would remember that for the rest of his life. It had one benefit, though, from then on, he kept his wages himself. Now, he gave his parents money on holidays and festivals, and bought them things whenever he returned. Tangible gifts, everyone in the village praised his filial piety. Jasmine Malone looked at Lily Dawson. Currently, only Lily's words carried any weight with the third son. Lily Dawson hesitated slightly, then said, Third brother, if Diana isn't going, let second sister-in-law go. It's hard for second brother to support the family alone. Kofi Dawson scoffed, the school requires an exam. She won't pass. Nonsense. Diana barely set foot in a school, and you thought she could pass. Your second sister-in-law will have no problem. Kofi Dawson stated frankly, Mother, don't underestimate Diana. In all of Dawson Village, no one surpasses her in intelligence or appearance. As for Melissa Bailey's character, sending her to a school to teach would be corrupting the students. He wouldn't do such a wicked thing. Moreover, there was a hidden danger. If he helped Melissa Bailey, would he also have to help his eldest brother and sister-in-law find jobs? If he didn't, there would be more fighting and disputes later. Kofi Dawson, not wanting to continue the topic, excused himself, claiming fatigue, and went to rest. Lily Dawson, watching her mother wipe away tears, felt her heart ache. Mother, don't worry. I'll talk to third brother again tomorrow morning. Early morning, white clouds drifted across the azure sky. The wind rustled the leaves of the longan tree in the courtyard. Thea Dawson breathed in the fresh air, appreciating the beautiful surroundings. Because Holly Lewis had forbidden Thea Dawson from cooking, she was chased out of the kitchen as soon as she entered. She happened to see Naomi Dawson carrying a basket of laundry towards the river. Thea Dawson took it from her, saying, Naomi Dawson, go tidy the rooms. Don't do heavy work like this anymore, it'll stunt your growth. She was quite tall now, appearing to be around 1m66. She attributed this to Dylan Dawson and Holly Lewis, both tall individuals, especially Dylan Dawson, who looked nearly 1m8. Carrying the tub to the riverbank, soap required industrial coupons, which Holly Lewis was naturally unwilling to spend money on without coupons. So, their household used alkaline powder, sparingly. Reaching the river, Thea saw Penny Turner washing clothes. Beaten so badly yesterday, yet forced to wash clothes today, the Turners truly didn't treat their daughter like a human being. Penny Turner, looking up, saw Thea Dawson, her eyes flashing with resentment. Why hadn't she died? If she had, her parents wouldn't be beating and scolding her, and they'd even have enough to eat. Thea, seeing the resentment, thought, what a viper. Unafraid, she descended to the riverbank, placing her tub some distance from Penny. Not to provoke, but because the area around Penny was empty. News of yesterday must have spread, making everyone avoid her. Having finished washing her clothes, Thea saw Penny staring at her. She smiled, what? Want to push me in? I'm a good swimmer, but if you fell in, no one would dare save you. Penny Turner, her heart pounding, threw her washing stick into her tub and hurried away. There's a saying, not afraid of a thief stealing, but of a thief remembering. Watching Penny's retreating figure, Thea felt she should be careful when going out. Being unguarded could lead to serious trouble. Thea, looking at the two filthy clotheslines, couldn't help but take them to the river and wash them thoroughly. She decided she needed to find time to deep clean the entire Dawson house. Having finished washing and hanging the clothes, Dylan Dawson and Holly Lewis returned. Thea told them, "Father, Mother, please stop cutting firewood so early in the morning. It's too harmful to your health." That Aunt Morgan had 3 workers, yet exploited her parents' labor. Now that their family wasn't so destitute, Thea didn't want them to suffer this hardship. The summer harvest would begin tomorrow, and they planned to rest for a while. However, Holly Lewis seized the opportunity to make demands. "Everything costs money, and work points don't bring in much. How can we survive without the extra income from firewood? If you're willing to teach at the school, your father and I won't go. But only during the summer harvest. We'll go back after the fieldwork is done." Hearing this, Thea, feigning reluctance, said, "I'll go see Kofi Dawson later." Holly Lewis beamed, "That's right. It would be foolish to refuse such a good opportunity. When you see Jian-Yu and Lily, be sure to thank them properly." Thea, dreading further reminders, quickly agreed. At dinner, Toby Dawson yelled, "Mother, I want white rabbit candy." Holly Lewis flatly refused. Such valuable treats were to be saved for gifts, not eaten. Toby Dawson, hearing he couldn't have the candy, burst into tears. "Mother! Aren't you buying anything else for the gift?" "I don't care. I want white rabbit candy." Lewis' second son's courtship was progressing. If it led to engagement, gifts were necessary. White rabbit candy was both economical and presentable. Holly Lewis, annoyed by Toby Dawson's behavior, snapped, "Shut up. If you cry anymore, I'll beat you to death." Toby Dawson, unafraid of the threat, retorted, "I want milk candy. Even if you beat me to death, I still want it." Holly Lewis stormed out and returned with a thick branch to beat Toby Dawson. Thea Dawson felt Toby Dawson's behavior needed serious correction, otherwise, she'd continue stealing snacks from other children. This not only brought shame but also made people question their upbringing, casting doubt on her family's values. Toby Dawson didn't flinch, only cried louder, eventually rolling on the ground, "Even if you beat me to death, I still want milk candy." Dylan Dawson remained silent throughout. Holly Lewis managed household matters and the children. He rarely interfered, solidifying her absolute authority at home. Of course, Thea Dawson's previous situation was a different matter. Holly Lewis beat Toby Dawson until the branch broke, demonstrating her ruthlessness. "Are you getting up?" Toby Dawson lay sprawled on the ground, face covered in tears and snot, not without milk candy. Thea Dawson, impressed by her little sister's determination, said, "If you want milk candy, get up and wash your face and hands. Otherwise, you won't even get the wrapper." Toby Dawson wiped her nose with her sleeve and asked, "Really? Have I ever lied to you?" Toby Dawson immediately jumped up and ran outside. Seeing her agility, Thea Dawson thought Holly Lewis hadn't hit her hard enough. "Mother, give Nancy Dawson and the others 2 candies each." Holly Lewis's response was the same, "No." Thea Dawson, already familiar with her mother's stinginess, said, "The milk candy and seafood are gifts from Uncle Swan's family. If you don't give them, I'll break into the cupboard." Holly Lewis glared furiously, "You dare? You'll see if I dare." While Diana wouldn't have dared before, Holly Lewis wasn't so sure now. After hesitating, she conceded, 2 is too many. 1 each. All right, 1 was better than none. Holly Lewis went inside and retrieved 5 candies, grumbling while distributing them. 5 candies could be traded for 2 packets of salt. "This is the only time, there won't be a next." Toby Dawson, undeterred, said, "Mother, I want more tomorrow." Holly Lewis scolded angrily, "Eat, eat, eat. Are you a reincarnated starving ghost? If you eat everything, what will we give when your cousins get married? Thea Dawson unwrapped her milk candy and, while Holly Lewis wasn't looking, slipped it into her mother's mouth. Catching her mother's gaze, Thea Dawson smiled. "Mother, is the milk candy sweet?" Holly Lewis, with the hard candy in her mouth, smacked Thea Dawson's back, scolding, "Why didn't you say you didn't want it earlier? A wasted candy could buy half a packet of salt." Toby Dawson immediately chimed in, "Mother, if you don't want it, give it to me." Before Holly Lewis could respond, the work whistle blew outside, and the couple hurried out. Stepping outside, Dylan Dawson lowered his voice, saying, "Diana's personality has changed a lot, but she's still as filial as ever. Don't speak such nonsense again." Holly Lewis worried about the drastic change in her daughter's personality, fearing she was possessed by a water spirit, and had even mentioned it to her husband last night. But the sweetness of the candy had soothed Holly Lewis's heart, and she said with a smile on her face, "No, I won't talk nonsense anymore." Toby Dawson always believed that only what she swallowed belonged to her. However, the milk candy was so delicious that she was reluctant to eat it all at once, preferring to savor it slowly by letting it dissolve in her mouth. Seeing Toby's mouth constantly moving, Tilly Green couldn't help but ask, "Toby Dawson, is something wrong with your mouth?" Worried she might swallow the milk candy while talking, Toby Dawson spat it onto the candy wrapper, then said proudly, "This is White Rabbit milk candy. It's very sweet. My sister said she'll give me more tomorrow." After speaking, she popped the candy back into her mouth and carefully folded the wrapper, tucking it into her pocket. Tilly Green said enviously, "Your elder sister is so nice." She also had an elder sister, but she had married into another commune 4 years ago. After her marriage, her sister never returned. She heard it was because her family had demanded too much for the betrothal, and her husband's family wouldn't allow her to come back. Toby Dawson tilted her head up and said, "Of course. My elder sister is the best." However, her elder sister had also warned her that if she continued to roll around like a dirty monkey, she wouldn't get any of the good food at home. So, from then on, she always washed herself clean before returning home. Back at home, Thea Dawson finished cleaning the kitchen and went to Sean Dawson's house. When she arrived, Kofi Dawson was repairing a winnowing machine. Not the kind of toy windmill children played with, but a farm implement used to remove impurities from grains and crops, separating the chaff from the grain. This type of winnowing machine was only owned by well-off families. Families like Thea Dawson's didn't have one and usually used a traditional winnowing basket to remove impurities. Thea Dawson praised him, "Kofi Dawson, I didn't know you were skilled in carpentry." "I learned a bit from my grandfather," Kofi Dawson replied, then called out to Lily inside the house. Lily Dawson quickly emerged from the house. She wore her hair in a single braid, a light blue long-sleeved shirt, black pants, and her butterfly-adorned sandals. Thea Dawson looked at her own patched, gray clothes and understood why her former self always avoided Lily Dawson. Standing together, she looked like an ugly duckling in comparison. Lily Dawson first poured a glass of water, then returned to the house and brought out a plate of snacks. The plate contained White Rabbit milk candies, peanuts, and red dates, a rather generous assortment. Kofi Dawson put down his tools, sat on a nearby bench, and said, "Diana, there's only one spot allocated from the commune. If you want to go, you need to give me a convincing reason in the next 2 days." His friend's brother-in-law was the head of the Hongchi commune, otherwise, he wouldn't have gotten the information so quickly. Telling Kofi Dawson was a favor. Thea Dawson nodded in acknowledgement, then asked, "Lily, I heard the annual factory worker recruitment is around July or August. Has our county town's factory started recruiting yet?" Kofi Dawson's expression darkened. He hadn't expected Thea Dawson to have such lofty aspirations, wanting to work in a factory. Factory work was certainly better than being a primary school teacher in the commune, but getting into the factory wasn't that easy. Even Lily's job relied on the Kwong family's influence. Lily also understood Thea Dawson's ambition. Wasn't the commune's primary school job good enough? Unlike Kofi Dawson, she didn't hesitate to say, "Diana, the town's factory is recruiting, but only those with town household registrations are eligible. Rural registrations don't qualify." This was just short of telling Thea Dawson outright not to dream of a town job. There was no place for her. Kofi Dawson added, "Actually, even town residents who can take the recruitment exam can't get into the factory without connections and relationships." Seeing their strange expressions, Thea Dawson guessed what they were thinking, but she didn't care. Factories don't just recruit workers, they also recruit technical staff. That doesn't necessarily require a town household registration. Her grandmother had been an accountant her whole life, working in a factory 20 years ago. Later, due to her grandfather's connections, she was transferred to a government agency. They loved to tell stories about the old days, and she, having heard so much, naturally understood. Lily Dawson's face soured as Thea Dawson persisted. Factories don't recruit technical staff externally. Senior technical workers are all trained within the factory. Factories with good benefits won't let them go. If they lack ordinary technical workers, they'll just recruit fresh graduates to apprentice under a master. As for senior engineers, they were treasures that no one would willingly let go. Thea Dawson thought for a moment and asked, "Do they recruit propagandists or accountants?" "My handwriting is quite good, and I know how to keep accounts." The accounting here was certainly different from her time, but the fundamental principles remained the same. She planned to go to town in the next couple of days to buy books and familiarize herself with the current rules and regulations. Lily Dawson spoke before she thought, "Diana, it's not like just having good handwriting qualifies you as a propagandist, or knowing how to keep accounts makes you an accountant. These positions have high requirements." Kofi Dawson immediately interrupted his sister, saying, "Diana, the textile factory is recruiting accountants. They're looking for 3 people, and the requirements are broad, under 25 years old and a junior high school diploma." Thea Dawson was overjoyed. The textile factory's recruitment conditions seemed tailor-made for her. Moreover, they were recruiting 3 people at once. Even with internal transfers, all 3 positions couldn't be filled internally. So, she was 90% sure she wanted to take the exam. Seeing her joy, Lily Dawson couldn't help but throw cold water on Thea Dawson's excitement. The textile factory isn't recruiting ordinary accountants. They need people with extensive experience. The recruitment exam has 2 parts, a written test and a practical accounting test. Only the top 3 candidates after both exams will be selected. She herself had been tempted when she first heard the news. Firstly, the textile factory had excellent benefits and high wages. Secondly, an accountant was a crucial position managing finances, a position of high status. Unfortunately, after learning about the announcement's requirements, she gave up. Studying for the written exam and finding a tutor might be manageable, but practical accounting required experience. Thea Dawson saw her displeasure but didn't pay it any mind. "What do I need to bring for registration?" "You want to take the test?" Thea Dawson chuckled and said, "I'm free anyway, might as well give it a shot. What if a blind squirrel finds a nut?" Lily Dawson, recalling her mother's words from last night, felt a stir in her heart and asked, "Diana, does this mean you don't want to teach at the commune's elementary school anymore?" "I'll apply for both. It's not like both exams will be on the same day." Lily Dawson remembered clearly but kept silent. "Sister Diana, if you want to take the textile factory recruitment exam, will you have time to prepare for the commune elementary school exam?" Thea Dawson laughed and said, "What's there to prepare for an elementary school exam? I could take it tomorrow with no problem." Teachers were incredibly scarce in this era, so those who finished junior high could teach elementary school, and those who finished high school could teach junior high. This also meant that teachers often used the local dialect. If she applied and there wasn't any internal shuffling, she was sure to get the position. Lily Dawson thought Thea Dawson was incredibly arrogant. Kofi Dawson also felt Thea Dawson was a bit arrogant, but unlike Lily Dawson, he didn't show it on his face. Diana, even though it's just an elementary school exam, the requirements are still relatively high. Thea Dawson asked in standard Mandarin, "What are the requirements?" Kofi Dawson was taken aback, his face etched with surprise. "You can speak Mandarin?" Not only could she speak it, but her pronunciation was impeccable, without a trace of an accent. This alone put her ahead of many others. At least among those he knew, no one spoke more standard Mandarin than her. Of course. If I teach, I'll naturally use Mandarin, not the local dialect. I've also self-studied the entire high school curriculum. Diana had high school textbooks for 2 years, and after flipping through them these past 2 days, she found the material relatively simple. Kofi Dawson's jaw dropped. After a moment, he asked, "Is all of that true?" Thea Dawson replied, "Why would I lie to you? I originally wanted to self-study and get my high school diploma, so I inquired at the school 2 years ago. Unfortunately, they didn't agree. Otherwise, I would have my diploma by now." She said this to let the siblings know how quickly she learned. Later, when they spread the word and she passed the textile factory's accounting exam, people wouldn't think she was some kind of freak. Lily Dawson remained skeptical. "Why haven't I heard anyone mention this before? Granny Daisy said tall trees catch strong winds, so I shouldn't show off too much, otherwise, it would be dangerous." Anything she couldn't explain, she'd just blame on Granny Daisy. Diana didn't know, but based on her memories, Thea Dawson suspected Granny Daisy wasn't a simple woman. Just how not simple, she couldn't guess without more information. Lily Dawson gasped. Kofi Dawson pondered for a moment, only recalling that the old woman always dressed neatly but didn't speak much. He couldn't remember anything else. "If you're that confident, I'll talk to a friend and let you know when registration opens." Thea Dawson thanked him, then turned to Lily Dawson. "Lily, have you found a job yet?" Lily Dawson had secured a position at the garment factory, not as a regular worker, but in the propaganda department. However, she wasn't close with Thea Dawson, so she downplayed the significance, saying, "Nothing yet, jobs are scarce these days. It's all about luck." Thea Dawson didn't take her words at face value. The transport company was currently a highly sought-after employer, and it wouldn't be difficult for Kwong Bok Ton to arrange a position for Lily Dawson there. The problem was likely Lily's high standards. She probably wanted a more prestigious placement. Thea Dawson inquired, "Kofi Dawson, Lily, what do I need to bring for registration?" Lily Dawson, being the most informed, replied, "Just your household registration papers, a letter of recommendation, and your diploma." Thea Dawson, somewhat surprised, asked, "A letter of recommendation is required for registration?" "Absolutely. The organization needs the letter of recommendation to verify your identity and ensure there are no issues." Her own household registration had been transferred to the town 3 years prior, eliminating the need for a letter of recommendation in her case. Captain Dawson was a decent man, asking him for a letter of recommendation while also requesting discretion shouldn't be a problem. Thea Dawson didn't press further, exchanging a few more pleasantries before departing. Watching her leave, Lily Dawson curled her lip and asked, "Third brother, do you think she's being truthful?" "What do you mean, you think she's exaggerating?" "Thea Dawson's big talk only serves to make us look down on her, it doesn't achieve anything." Therefore, he believed Thea Dawson had self-studied the high school curriculum. It was true that Diana had self-studied the primary and middle school curriculum, and since Kofi Dawson had never attended school, he was unaware of the significant differences between middle school and high school. He simply believed Thea Dawson based on his initial impression. Lily Dawson conceded that he had a point, but Thea Dawson's attitude still worried her. "Third brother, if Diana tries to get into the factory, please don't help her, no matter what." Kofi Dawson chuckled, "Even if I wanted to, I couldn't. Those positions are all internally allocated. I don't have the clout to snatch food from their mouths. If it were his own sister, he would risk offending others to secure the job. But Diana Dawson was an outsider. Saving his sister in exchange for a commune primary school teacher position was already pushing it. It wasn't worth offending anyone further. Besides, the commune teacher position, being unofficial, wouldn't be highly competitive. Hearing this, Lily Dawson felt reassured. Returning home, Thea Dawson saw a young man with large eyes and thick eyebrows standing at the door. This was the original owner's cousin, with whom she shared a close bond. Influenced by the original owner's feelings, Thea maintained a friendly demeanor. "Trent, what brings you here?" Since it wasn't raining, everyone was out working, leaving the house empty. Trent Lewis looked Thea Dawson over from head to toe, ensuring she was all right before speaking. "Arthur Fleck came down from the mountain last evening and mentioned your attempted suicide by drowning. Grandma nearly fainted from the shock and sent me here before dawn to check on you. Is Grandma all right?" "She's fine. If she weren't hampered by her bound feet, she would have come herself." Thea Dawson knew the old woman had bound feet, a victim of outdated feudal practices. Fortunately, she had married well, to the original owner's grandfather, a capable man. Trent Lewis saw Thea Dawson walking by and called out, "Sis, help me lower this basket." Carrying it down from the mountain had nearly broken his shoulders. He truly couldn't carry it any further. Lifting it, she realized the basket was incredibly heavy, and she didn't know what was inside. Bringing it into the house, Thea Dawson asked, "Are all these things for us?" Trent grinned, saying, "If they weren't for you all, why would I lug them all the way here?" Hearing this, Thea Dawson took out the contents of the basket. On top was a live gray rabbit with a broken left leg. She learned that Liam Neeson had caught it yesterday and, anticipating the upcoming harvest season, had sent Trent Lewis to deliver it to them. Besides the rabbit, there were mushrooms, wood ear fungus, and various other mountain products. At the bottom were 2 slabs of dried meat and a jar of honey, precious, hard-to-find wild honey. Looking at everything, Thea Dawson felt a pang of emotion. "We can't accept this honey. Grandma is getting on in years, this would be good for her health." The Lewis family, living in the mountains with their own land and fields, and with the eldest son skilled in hunting, had been doing quite well. For years, their generosity had helped Thea's family survive. Thea Dawson's memories confirmed that, aside from the New Year's feast, the meat they usually ate was also provided by the eldest Lewis son. Trent Lewis chuckled, "This time, we put in about 10 pounds of honey, plenty to go around." The Lewis family lived in the mountains. It took more than 5 hours to walk to their house from Dawson Village, even at a brisk pace. Because of the distance and inconvenient transportation, the commune generally turned a blind eye to their affairs, as long as they weren't excessive. Hearing this, Thea Dawson immediately glanced outside, and after confirming no one was around, she breathed a sigh of relief. "This isn't like the mountains. We can't just talk about what we eat and use, understand? Cousin, how did you get so timid?" Thea Dawson lowered her voice. "Do you know how much a pound of wild honey costs in the city? 2 or 3 kwai. Father earns only 2 or 3 mao a day. Do you think if the villagers hear about this, they'll report it to the commune, and then this honey will be confiscated?" Normally, market price for honey was over 1 kwai, but the problem was that it was hard to find. You couldn't buy it even if you had the money, so the price was relatively high. Trent Lewis's jaw dropped in astonishment. "Cousin, you're not kidding, are you?" Thea Dawson thought for a moment and said, "I'm going into the city tomorrow. Come with me, and you'll see if I'm lying. But remember, don't talk carelessly when we're out." Trent Lewis, at 16, had never been to the city. His eyes lit up at the suggestion. "I won't say anything, I won't say anything." For lunch, Thea Dawson steamed the dried meat, then made scrambled eggs with chili peppers and stir-fried water spinach, along with a bowl of seaweed soup. Trent Lewis looked hesitantly at the dark green seaweed and asked, "Cousin, what is this? Is it edible?" Thea Dawson felt a twinge of sadness. Jiang Province was near the sea, yet her cousin had never seen seaweed. It showed how scarce resources were. This is called seaweed. It contains iodine. Eating it regularly prevents goiter. Really? The books say so, so it must be true. Trent Lewis, who had never read a book, said with a touch of envy, "Cousin, you're so amazing. You know everything." Holly Lewis returned to find the food on the table and felt a pang in her chest. Meat again, and seaweed egg drop soup. If this kept up, she feared the room addition would collapse before the house was even built. "Diana Dawson, if you dare step foot in the kitchen again, I'll break your legs." Toby Dawson raised a hand. "But eldest sister knows how to cook." "Eldest sister's cooking is delicious." Third sister's cooking was either fiery chili peppers or bland bitter melon and squash. Unlike eldest sister, who always knew how to improve the family's meals. Eat it if you can, or get out. After this, Holly Lewis set aside half the bowl of steamed dried meat for dinner, then divided the food among Trent Lewis and her daughters. Whatever remained, she and Dylan Dawson would eat. There was no other way. Toby Dawson was too gluttonous. If portions weren't allocated, she alone could devour a third of the food. It was a mystery how such a small person could eat so much. After the meal, Thea Dawson went inside and told Holly Lewis, "Mother, I've spoken to Kofi Dawson. I'll take the examination. Think it through carefully." Thea Dawson said, "Mother, I want to go to town tomorrow to buy some books. Reading more will broaden my knowledge." "How much money?" Thea Dawson wanted to buy accounting books, but she wasn't sure of the exact price. "Give me $10, Mother. I'll buy some salt and sewing supplies with the leftover money. There's a saying about catching tigers bare-handed." Though reluctant, Holly Lewis gave her $5. $10. Dream on. These books weren't made of gold. Why would they be so expensive? Thea Dawson seized the opportunity. "Mother, I'm a bit scared to go to town alone. Let Trent accompany me tomorrow." Trent Lewis was a year younger than her but half a head taller, with a handsome appearance. Having him along would ease safety concerns. Although public order was relatively good these days, caution wasn't excessive. Hearing this, Holly Lewis immediately agreed. After all, she was her eldest daughter. Encountering a hooligan or someone with ill intentions could be dangerous. "Go on. Tell Trent to go with you, but come back early." "Yes." Waiting for Holly Lewis to rest, Thea Dawson went to Captain Dawson's house to request a letter of introduction. "Captain, my mother hasn't agreed yet, so please don't tell her. If she finds out, she'll definitely stop me." Captain Dawson felt this was a good thing and readily agreed. "You're striving to improve yourself. Why would your mother object?" Thea Dawson gave a wry smile. "She'll think I have strange ideas. Actually, I'm not entirely confident, but there's nothing to lose by trying." Captain Dawson believed taking the recruitment exam was positive and agreed with Thea Dawson to keep it quiet for now. However, he would turn around and ask Sean Dawson and Kofi Dawson about the matter. Sean Dawson looked at Kofi Dawson and asked, "Did you help her apply for the textile factory job?" With fabric in short supply, the textile factory, a leading employer, was looking to reduce staff, making it particularly difficult to get in. Sean Dawson assumed Kofi Dawson did this to give the commune teaching position to his second daughter-in-law. Kofi Dawson shook his head. "No," she inquired herself. After learning about it, she decided to apply on her own. "If she doesn't want the job at the commune's primary school, then let your second sister-in-law's daughter have it." Kofi Dawson suppressed his anger and, instead of arguing with Sean Dawson, simply said, "Diana said she'll take both exams. The textile factory exam is next month, the commune primary school exam is in August, the two don't clash." Lily Dawson scorned Thea Dawson. thinking she was delusional and overestimating herself. Kofi Dawson, however, admired her spirit. To try, even if it meant failure, left no regrets. True failure was to be too afraid to even try. Sean Dawson was speechless. Captain Dawson, not as well informed, later asked, "Jianyu, are you sure you want to give this primary school position to Diana?" "Uncle, whether Diana gets the job depends on her. If she does well, I'll talk to the village head and the principal. If she does poorly, even I can't help." The implication was clear: success depended on her own abilities. Sean Dawson was pleased with this resolute answer. "I couldn't agree more. Teaching concerns the children's future. Forcing someone unqualified into the role would harm them." Kofi Dawson felt his parents were becoming increasingly muddled, but he didn't bother arguing. It was pointless. After dinner and a rest, Thea Dawson taught her 3 younger cousins in the courtyard. Trent, initially uninterested, soon became intrigued. "Cousin, are there really gods in the sky?" Thea Dawson's expression shifted. Lost in the moment, she'd forgotten the taboos of this era. "There are no gods or demons," she quickly corrected. "Gods and monsters are just figments of the imagination. Superstition is being denounced now, so don't repeat what I just said. I could get arrested." They quickly promised to keep her word secret. The incident, however, made Thea Dawson realize something. Her previous comfortable life had made her unaware of the dangers here. She could maintain control most of the time, but problems arose when she relaxed. A slip of the tongue at home was one thing, but saying the wrong thing in class could bring trouble not only to herself but also her family. The primary school job wasn't suitable for her. After an hour of studying, Toby Dawson and Naomi Dawson, showing they'd memorized the new characters, went inside to rest. After washing their faces, Tammy Dawson and Naomi Dawson went to their room. Thea Dawson asked, "Naomi Dawson, did Mother give you any milk candy today?" Naomi Dawson's face stiffened. "Yes." Thea Dawson smiled. "Close your eyes and open your mouth." Naomi Dawson smelled a familiar fragrance that quickly filled her mouth. Opening her eyes, she saw the candy wrapper in Thea Dawson's hand and hurried to retrieve a wooden box from under the bed. Seeing the milk candy still inside, she relaxed. Thea Dawson felt a pang of sadness and stroked the girl's hair. "Eat it when I give it to you, don't hide it any more. If Toby Dawson finds out, your treasure will be gone." Tammy Dawson laughed. Toby Dawson wouldn't dare. Last year, Toby Dawson stole 2 of Naomi Dawson's apples and got a beating that left his face bruised. Even their mother couldn't pull Naomi Dawson off him. Naomi Dawson mumbled, "Sis, where'd you get the candy?" Thea Dawson teased, "From Mother's drawer." Tammy Dawson's face paled, and Naomi Dawson choked, coughing. After a moment, Tammy Dawson cautiously asked, "Eldest sister, did you really break into Mother's drawer?" Thea Dawson said, half exasperated, half amused, "If I'd broken into Mother's drawer, do you think I'd still be here chatting with you lot? I got this candy from Lily Dawson's house this morning." Tammy Dawson finally relaxed. Thea Dawson rose before dawn, washed her face, and sat down to a bowl of porridge. Coming to this place had one advantage: she went to bed early and woke up early every day, unlike before when she wouldn't hit the hay before midnight, even though that was considered early for her then. As the two left, Holly Lewis warned, "Diana, come straight back after buying the books. Don't wander around." "All right." Dawson Village wasn't far from town, about an hour's walk. The road was relatively flat but rocky, making walking in cloth shoes painful. Thea Dawson thought the first thing she'd do when she had money was buy a pair of sandals. As they walked, Trent Lewis said, "Cousin, I want to buy a red scarf. Do you think they have them in town?" Thea Dawson turned and asked, "Who's it for?" "Your aunt. Their eldest uncle had 2 daughters and 3 sons. Sadly, the second daughter died at the age of 3. The first 3 children were married with kids, leaving only Trent unmarried. Being the youngest, he was a bit spoiled. No, it's for Jessica Fleck, Uncle Kanna's youngest daughter. She's always wanted a red scarf. Seeing her cousin's casual expression, Thea Dawson figured it wasn't for a sweetheart and dismissed it. Where would you buy a scarf in this heat? Wait until it gets cold and we'll go to town then. Trent Lewis scratched the back of his head, chuckling awkwardly. Just then, someone cycled past them. Thea Dawson watched their retreating figure, longing for her own precious. Oh well, she could only dream. She'd be hoofing it for a while longer. Cousin, if we had bicycles, getting around would be so much easier. Thea Dawson glanced at him and said, the mountain roads are rough and uneven. A bicycle wouldn't be much use. The roads to the Lewis family home were all small paths. Forget rainy days, even on a good day, it was easy to fall. Plus, it was so far that the 5 cousins rarely went into the mountains. Seeing Trent Lewis fall silent, Thea Dawson consoled him, actually, living in the mountains is pretty good. Your eldest uncle knows how to hunt, and we have 20 acres of land. We've never gone hungry. Unlike in the city, where lots of people go hungry. Trent Lewis gasped, incredulous, how's that possible? City folk eat rations and still go hungry? Thea Dawson explained, not everyone in the city has a job. City folks get rations, allocated portions. Someone like you would get about 40 pounds of grain a month. Do you think 1 pound of grain a day is enough? A growing boy like Trent Lewis reckoned he could easily eat 2 pounds of grain a day. Trent Lewis was skeptical. If the city isn't good, why does everyone want to go there? Uncle John Dawson especially wants Jessica Fleck to marry into the city. Thea Dawson replied, only those with jobs live well in the city. Those without are worse off than those in the mountains. If Uncle John Dawson marries his daughter into the city and she doesn't have a job, her in-laws will look down on her. Instead of slaving away in the city, it's better to marry a farmer. It might be a bit more tiring, but at least she won't be mistreated. Trent Lewis hesitated. It can't be that bad, can it? If they dislike Jessica Fleck for not having a job, they could just not marry her. Why go through with it? Thea Dawson truly felt this child was naive. She chuckled and said, generally, those who marry mountain girls are poor men who can't find wives elsewhere. Unless the girl is exceptionally beautiful and catches the eye of a man with a job. Even if the man likes her, if his mother doesn't, she'll be tormented. Of course, I'm just speaking generally. Who knows, maybe she'll be lucky and find a loving husband and a kind mother-in-law. A situation like the latter was as rare as winning the lottery. But nothing is absolute. As long as the girl is independent and can stand up for herself, she'll definitely have a good life. But such women can thrive anywhere. Hearing this, Trent Lewis quickly said, I'll tell Uncle John Dawson when I get back. Thea Dawson remained silent. Even though Dylan Dawson and Holly Lewis loved Diana, her marriage was also tinged with self-interest. Whether John Dawson truly wanted a better life for his daughter by marrying her off to the city, only he knew. Arriving at the town, the atmosphere immediately became bustling. Bicycles, a rare sight in the countryside, were plentiful here. Trent Lewis watched them whizzing by, a flicker of envy in his eyes. Thea Dawson observed the passers-by, dressed either in Trish and Paul's shirts or drab gray clothing, and sighed inwardly at the monotony. Thankfully, things would change in 2 or 3 years. Otherwise, she didn't know if she could endure this for the rest of her life. Trent Lewis asked in a low voice, Cousin, where are we going now? Thea Dawson didn't reply, just motioned for him to follow. They arrived at the supply cooperative. Upon entering, they saw the sales clerk picking at the sole of her shoe. Thea Dawson thought to herself, how leisurely. She approached and said, Sister, I'd like to buy a pack of cigarettes. Trent Lewis, noticing the wrinkles on the saleswoman's face, was startled by Thea Dawson's daring use of sister. The saleswoman, a woman in her 30s, initially looked indifferent but softened considerably upon hearing this. What brand are you looking for? Thea Dawson said sheepishly, Sister, I'm buying them as a gift, but I don't have cigarette coupons. What kind of cigarettes can I buy without them? The saleswoman pulled out 2 different colored packs of different brands from under the counter and pointed, saying, This is Du Vin, and this is Hong Thap Sun. Both are suitable as gifts or for personal use. You're in luck, these 2 don't require coupons right now. Thea Dawson hadn't seen the first brand before, but she was very familiar with Hong Thap Sun. Her grandfather smoked them, and when she was little, he would often take money to the store to buy them, using the change to buy her popsicles or other snacks. Hearing this, Trent Lewis worriedly pulled her aside when she took out the money and asked, Cousin, what are you buying this for? Didn't I just say I wanted to give it to someone? Are you getting absent-minded at such a young age? Trent Lewis gripped Thea Dawson's arm and asked, Give it to someone, give it to whom? Why did you only say you were buying books at home, and not cigarettes for someone? Cousin, if Auntie finds out about this, she'll beat you to death. Even he, at that time, had to endure a scolding. Thea Dawson said, As long as you don't tell and I don't tell, how will my mother know? Alright, stop bothering me, this pack of cigarettes is related to my future. If you don't let me buy them, I won't be able to register, and then you won't be able to make up for it. Although Trent Lewis wasn't very old, he knew that ruining someone's future was like killing them, so how could he dare to stop her? Thus, he could only helplessly watch Thea Dawson buy 2 packs of Hongtashan cigarettes. Walking a short distance, she asked a middle-aged man carrying a black briefcase, Comrade, excuse me, how do I get to the textile factory? The man assessed Thea Dawson and asked cautiously, What are you going to the textile factory for? Thea Dawson smiled and said, We're from Dawson Village in Hongchi Commune. My cousin works at the textile factory. I'm taking my younger brother to visit her and bring her some things. The man looked at the backpack Trent Lewis was carrying and nodded towards the front, Go to the intersection ahead and turn left. Go forward 200 meters and turn right. Go straight and you'll be there. Trent Lewis was completely confused. After the man left, he asked, Cousin, do you remember what he said? Yes, let's go. With an, oh, Trent Lewis said in bewilderment, Cousin, you have a cousin who works at the textile factory? Why didn't I know? Thea Dawson couldn't help but laugh at his foolish appearance and said, Whether I have a cousin or not, wouldn't you know? Alright, stop talking nonsense, let's hurry up. After walking for a while, Thea Dawson stopped an old man to ask for directions. After making sure the man hadn't lied to them, they continued forward, walking for about 15 minutes before finally reaching the gate of the textile factory. Trent Lewis stood opposite the factory and pointed at the sign hanging by the door, Sister, what does that say? Thea Dawson said, Yongning Textile Factory. Trent, when you're free from farm work, come to my house and let Tammy Dawson teach you how to read. Otherwise, later, if you have to leave home, you'll have to ask people even what bus to take. Most people are relatively simple, and if you ask them a few questions, they'll kindly guide you, but there are also some malicious people who deliberately give you wrong directions so you take the wrong bus. My grandfather had 2 relatives who were tricked like this, which made them say that city people are very bad, but in reality, those people may not necessarily be city people. Why would I leave home? Even this is my first time in town. Thea Dawson didn't laugh at him. Nowadays, few people could predict the rapid development of the country in the next 30 years, the economic growth that many countries would call a miracle. Knowing how to read has 100 benefits and no harm. Alright, let's focus on the task at hand. This matter isn't urgent. Once she gets into the factory, she'll have a voice in the family, and then it won't be too late to bring this up. Also, because her eldest brother helped their family a lot, Thea Dawson wanted to give her younger cousin a hand. What business is it? You'll find out when we get there. The 2 crossed the street and arrived at the textile factory gates. Thea Dawson was about to approach the guard and a young man in a blue shirt and black trousers stopped them. "What are you doing here?" When they turned around, the man looked them up and down, his scrutinizing gaze making Thea Dawson uncomfortable. Uncertain of the man's identity, Thea Dawson masked her annoyance with a smile. "We heard the textile factory is hiring accountants, so we came to apply." The man looked at Thea Dawson's patched clothes and couldn't help but laugh, his laughter filled with contempt. "You want to apply to be an accountant at our factory? Can you even read?" Just then, a middle-aged man of about 40 walked over. Thea Dawson noticed he had a limp. As he approached, the man asked, "Accountant Tuong, are these two your relatives?" Accountant Tuong scoffed. He had no such impoverished relatives. "No, I saw them lurking suspiciously at the gate and thought I'd better question them." Thea Dawson was furious. Slandering others right off the bat was despicable. "My brother and I came here openly. How dare you accuse us of lurking and having ill intentions? Let me tell you, my family has been farmers for 5 generations, but no matter how poor we are, we've never stolen a single needle or thread from anyone. If you don't give me an explanation today, I'll go to your superiors. If they don't care, I'll go to the director." Tuong Van Ton, looking at this peasant girl, thought he could intimidate her into silence, but he hadn't expected such a sharp tongue. "You say you came to apply. Why didn't you come directly into the factory to apply instead of loitering outside the main gate for half a day?" Thea Dawson retorted sarcastically, "You say we were loitering outside the gate for half a day, so you were staring at us for that long too? It's only around 8 a.m., peak hour for people going to work. Are you suggesting the guard and all the workers are blind and only you saw us?" The factory guard looked at Thea Dawson. This girl, with her youthful face, had unexpected guts. "You say your family has been poor farmers for 5 generations. Do you have any proof?" Thea Dawson took out her letter of introduction. "Comrade, my name is Lily Dawson, from Dawson Village, Hongqi Commune. This is a letter of introduction from our village chief. Please take a look." Tuong Van Ton was breathing heavily with anger. "A peasant like you dares to apply to be an accountant at our company? Can you even read? Do you know how to keep accounts?" Thea Dawson noticed the guard also seemed to dislike this Tuong fellow, giving her a clue about his reputation within the factory. She cut him off. "Our leader once said, no investigation, no right to speak. You don't even know who I am. How dare you say I can't read or keep accounts? I'll have you know, I not only read better than you, but I can also keep accounts better than you. Only a state-owned enterprise would tolerate this kind of person. They wouldn't even get past the door at our Department of Affairs." Accountant Tuong nearly jumped out of his skin. "Who the hell are you, daring to?" Seeing him about to speak again, the man hurriedly said, "Accountant Tuong, it's almost time to work. You should quickly go to the office. If Section Chief Ha is looking for you and can't find you, it won't be good." Accountant Tuong glanced at his watch, then ignoring Thea Dawson and her sister, quickly biked into the factory. The man looked at Thea Dawson, chuckling. "Girl, this is Accountant Tuong from the finance department. He's a university student. You dare to say you know more than him, can do the books better than him? If others hear you, they'll think you're arrogant." Thea Dawson slipped a pack of Hontashan cigarettes into the man's hand, saying, "Uncle, hello uncle, may I ask for your esteemed name?" Bronson Malone was quite surprised, not expecting this seemingly naive young woman to be so worldly. He accepted the cigarettes, pulled one out for himself, tucked it away, and returned the rest to Thea Dawson. "My surname is Malone. Little girl, although our recruitment requirements aren't high this time, the applicants are all experienced accountants who've worked elsewhere. Incidentally, there are also 2 university students who applied." Thea Dawson, astonished, asked, "Aren't university students assigned jobs from above? Why do they have to come here for recruitment?" Bronson Malone said proudly, "How can assigned positions compare to the benefits at our textile factory? This time, the recruitment requirements are relaxed, so they've also come to participate." If they're selected, they'll be transferred here. This implied that all the applicants were experienced bookkeepers, not greenhorns. Asterisk, the original text uses, Shenghua Dan Zi, meaning unripe melon seeds, a metaphor for inexperienced newcomers. Gong, gong, gong. Trent Lewis, startled, asked, "Who's ringing the bell?" Bronson Malone, good-natured, explained, "That's the factory's work bell. If you're not at your workstation when it rings, your pay gets docked." This also subtly revealed that being late wouldn't matter as long as the management didn't pursue it. Thea Dawson actually had many questions, such as why the recruitment requirements were so relaxed this time, why they were recruiting 03 accountants at once, and whether there was something amiss with the finance department replacing 03 accountants simultaneously. However, she didn't ask anything further, only saying, "Mr. Malone, I want to register. Who should I look for?" Bronson Malone smiled and said, "Little girl, from what you said earlier, have you done bookkeeping before?" She had examined numerous financial statements of publicly listed companies, but she had never actually worked as an accountant. She could say she had studied accounting, but she couldn't lie about having worked as one, as it would be easily exposed. P/S, perhaps the female lead worked as a government auditor. Thea Dawson pondered, then said, "I've studied it but haven't worked practically. However, since I'm here, I should at least try. Failing the test just means my skills are lacking, and I can keep trying. But giving up at the doorstep makes me a deserter. Failing isn't scary, running away is shameful." She observed the old man, despite his slight limp, stood tall and proud, a posture suggesting a military background. Just as Thea Dawson surmised, Bronson Malone was a veteran, discharged 15 years prior and now employed at the textile mill. He initially intended to dissuade Thea Dawson, believing her lack of accounting experience would hinder her chances. However, her words changed his mind instantly. "Lass, ye're right. 'Tis no shame in failin' the test, but runnin' scared is. Go find Alice Neeson in HR, she handles registrations. Hurry now, today's the deadline." Thea Dawson felt fortunate to have come today. A 2-day delay would have cost her this opportunity, one unlikely to reappear for another 2 years. If she didn't want to work the fields then, her only option would be teaching at the commune. Thanking Bronson Malone, Thea Dawson tugged Trent Lewis towards human resources. The textile mill was expansive, reaching the office building took a good 10 minutes. The lack of clear signage on the first floor necessitated asking directions to the second-floor HR department. On the second floor, a worried Trent Lewis tugged at Thea Dawson's sleeve. "Cousin, you've never studied accounting. Are you sure about this?" Thea Dawson replied, "I have, you just don't know it. Remember, keep quiet unless I ask you something." Trent Lewis nodded in agreement. Entering, Thea Dawson addressed a short-haired man seated near the door. "Comrade, where can I find Alice Neeson?" The man glanced at the pair, his demeanor polite. "What can I do for you?" Thea Dawson, impressed by his courteous manner, replied, "I heard you were hiring accountants, so I've come to apply. Where can I find Ms. Neeson?" The man frowned, his politeness unwavering. "Did your source mention the minimum requirement of a middle school education?" "I've graduated middle school." The man offered a well-meaning caution, even the least qualified applicants have high school diplomas. With only a middle school education, you'll be outmatched. His implication was clear, don't waste your time. Trent Lewis, hearing this, tugged at Thea Dawson's arm, urging her to leave. Thea Dawson, unfazed, stood firm. "I have my middle school diploma and I'm under 25. I meet the requirements." Seeing her resolve, the man relented. "Wait here then. Ms. Neeson is briefly out but should return shortly." "Thank you, comrade." A short while later, a young woman in a black and white striped dress and long hair entered, her brisk pace suggesting efficiency. The woman, smiling, addressed the siblings. "Hello there. Who are you looking for?" Relieved by her warm demeanor, Thea Dawson replied, "We're looking for Alice Neeson." The young woman, slightly surprised, responded, "I'm Alice Neeson. What can I do for you?" Thea Dawson offered her most genuine smile. "Ms. Neeson, I'm here to apply for the accounting position." Alice Neeson was surprised. "You want to apply for the factory accountant position? You look like you're not even 18 yet." "I'll be 18 this September, that shouldn't be a restriction, right?" "No, as long as you're over 16 and have graduated from junior high." Hearing this, Thea Dawson immediately presented her referral letter, junior high diploma, and household registration book to Alice Neeson. Alice Neeson took them, and after reviewing them, hesitated for a moment before leading Thea Dawson to her seat. "Comrade Lily, although you meet our recruitment requirements, I advise you not to apply. I know, the lowest qualification among the applicants here this time is high school graduation." Alice Neeson said softly, "Not only that, the applicant with the longest work experience has 8 years, the shortest has 2. You've only graduated from junior high and have no experience, you definitely won't pass." She didn't need to ask, just by looking at Thea Dawson's clothes, she knew she was unemployed. Patches upon patches, someone with a job wouldn't be this ragged. Thea Dawson immediately changed her tactics. "Tony Lewis, although I only graduated from junior high, I've self-studied the entire high school curriculum. In addition, I've also studied accounting." Alice Neeson chuckled, "Junior high can't compare to high school. The high school curriculum has several additional subjects, and the difficulty level is several times higher." Because Thea Dawson seemed young, she spoke relatively tactfully. If it were someone older, she would have already started mocking. Having graduated high school herself, she knew very well how difficult the high school curriculum was. Thea Dawson smiled, "I've self-studied all the high school textbooks, it wasn't difficult at all. It's just that high school has strict requirements, unlike elementary and junior high. Otherwise, I would have already obtained a high school diploma." This was clearly a statement with an underlying meaning. Alice Neeson, being straightforward, asked directly, "What do you mean by that?" Thea Dawson gave an embarrassed smile, "I've never attended school. Both elementary and junior high were self-studied at home. Fortunately, the principals of both the elementary and junior high schools were kind enough to allow me to take the graduation exams. Because of my good grades, I was granted a junior high diploma." Alice Neeson's jaw dropped in astonishment. The middle-aged man, who had just felt that Thea Dawson was overestimating herself, let out an "ah" upon hearing this and asked, "Are you Diana Dawson from Dawson Village, Hongqi Commune?" "My formal name is Lily Dawson, my childhood name is Diana." The man stood up in shock, surprised that it really was her. He smiled and said, "My aunt married into Hongqi Commune. I've heard her mention you. I've always been curious. I never thought I'd meet you today. Little sister, you're truly remarkable." He hadn't finished his thought. His aunt had said this girl had a gentle and kind personality and had regretfully mentioned that she had to choose a husband through an arranged marriage, otherwise, she would have proposed a marriage for his cousin. He had listened at the time, and because the story was so unusual, he remembered it. Alice Neeson asked, "Did you really self-study the entire high school curriculum?" "I don't need to lie to you. This is a rare opportunity, so I want to give it a try. Even if I fail, I won't have any regrets." The middle-aged man said, "Tony Lewis, if she self-studied all of high school and has also studied accounting, you should let her try. Such a bright child, what a pity she's buried in this impoverished countryside." Alice Neeson, though slightly dubious of Thea Dawson's words, nodded in agreement, since the other girl had met the requirements. "You're quite lucky. The department head just told me to submit the applicant list. If you'd arrived any later, I would have already turned it in." Once the list was submitted, no further applications would be accepted. Hearing this, Thea Dawson silently felt fortunate that her luck wasn't bad. Thea Dawson, worried about misspelling her name if she wrote too quickly, wrote extremely slowly. Slowly now, surely she wouldn't make a mistake. Alice Neeson, seeing her handwriting, exclaimed, "Lily, how is your handwriting so beautiful?" Neat and elegant. It was even more beautiful than Lena Turner's flamboyant, affected script from the propaganda department. Remembering how Lena had once mocked her own handwriting as being as ugly as a person, Alice Neeson particularly hoped Thea Dawson would stay, so she could later suppress that girl's arrogance. Thea Dawson had a very good impression of Alice Neeson and was willing to tell her more about her circumstances. "I practiced following writing samples. When I was little, because my wrist wasn't strong, I tied it to a sandbag and persisted for 6 years practicing writing with twigs. Finally, my handwriting became presentable." Tying a sandbag to her wrist for practice was something from her past life, not this one. But during the time Diana studied with Granny Daisy, there was no one else around. Granny Daisy was gone, no one could expose her. Alice Neeson sighed and said, "Lily, you're truly remarkable. Not only intelligent but also able to endure hardship, unlike herself, who couldn't bear a bit of suffering." Thinking about how her father made her practice writing, she cried for a whole day and night. Finally, her grandmother scolded her father, and he didn't dare force her to practice anymore. At school, it was fine, but after entering the factory, Alice Neeson was ridiculed and regretted not practicing her handwriting diligently before. Thea Dawson filled in the application form. "Sister Alice, is this all right?" Alice Neeson helped check it, nodding, "All right, I'll take the list to the department head first. Wait for me here, I have something to discuss with you." Thea Dawson felt it must be something good and nodded in agreement. Alice Neeson returned after about 15 minutes. It wasn't convenient to talk in the office with 3 other people present. Alice Neeson led Thea Dawson outside, to a spot beneath a large tree, and asked in a low voice, "You said you've studied accounting before. Can you tell me a little about what accounting entails?" Thea Dawson explained, "Accounting is the work of monitoring and managing assets, mainly filling out debt vouchers, processing revenue books, and creating various reports. The specific tasks depend on the position, such as chief accountant, cost accountant, and warehouse accountant. Each position has different responsibilities." Alice Neeson had only asked casually, but after hearing Thea's clear explanation, she became even more convinced. "So, have you done any practical accounting work?" "No, I haven't had the opportunity, but I'm very good at mental calculations. Every year, when our village accountant distributes the grain rations, as soon as he announces the work points, I can calculate how many kilograms of grain each person should receive." This wasn't boasting. She had undergone special training in mental arithmetic and had some expertise in this area. Alice Neeson didn't doubt her. She suggested, "You have a strong theoretical foundation, but you lack practical experience. You must address this, otherwise, you definitely won't pass the second round of assessment." Thea Dawson, feigning a worried expression, said, "Sister Alice, what should I do?" as if she knew Alice wanted to give her a hint. Alice Neeson replied, "Today is the 16th, and the exam is scheduled for the 18th of next month. There are a little over 30 days left. You could use this opportunity to find an experienced accountant to tutor you. That way, you'll have a better chance of passing." Thea Dawson's heart stirred, recognizing the merit of the suggestion. If she passed, everyone would simply assume she was a quick learner. Having made up her mind, she feigned hesitation, saying, "My family are farmers, and we have no relatives in the city. I wouldn't know where to find a tutor." Without hesitation, Alice Neeson responded, "My mother knows a lot of people. She can help you find an experienced accountant to tutor you. It's just that they don't know you, so they can't help you for free." Seeing Thea Dawson's intelligence, she was willing to lend a hand. It was a contribution within her means, but Thea Dawson would have to cover the tutoring fees. After all, they were strangers. Overjoyed, Thea Dawson felt like her prayers had been answered. Excitedly, she said, "Of course. How could I expect free tutoring? I'm not very familiar with these things, Sister Alice. Would it be more appropriate to offer money or a gift? Observing Thea Dawson's decisiveness, Alice Neeson was impressed by her resolve and felt her help was worthwhile. Had Thea Dawson refused or asked her to cover the cost, she would have immediately withdrawn her offer. It's best to pay half the fee and offer some additional goods. Around 30 yuan should suffice for the fee, and for the goods, some eggs and vegetables would be fine. They're common in the countryside, but everything costs money in the city. Thea Dawson, her eyes welling up, grasped Alice Neeson's hand. Sister Alice, thank you. You're such a good person. Without you, I wouldn't have been prepared, and it would have been very difficult to pass the exam. With that, Thea Dawson called over Trent Lewis, who was waiting nearby, and retrieved a jar of wild honey from her basket. Sister Alice, I didn't bring anything with me this time, but please take this honey home with you. I'll bring you some eggs and vegetables next time. Alice Neeson's eyes lit up. Honey was her favorite, but it was so hard to come by. However, she wouldn't accept it for free. She offered Thea Dawson 2 yuan and 3 industrial coupons. Thea Dawson naturally refused. Alice Neeson insisted, it wouldn't be right for me to take your honey without paying. I could be reported and lose my job. Lily, if you really want to be kind to me, accept the money and coupons. Thea Dawson initially thought of accepting only 1 yuan, but Alice Neeson had already placed the money and coupons in her pocket, mentioning that it wouldn't look good if others saw them haggling back and forth. Left with no choice, Thea Dawson accepted. Alice Neeson said, Lily, this matter should be handled soon. Come find me the day after tomorrow. Yes, thank you, Sister Alice. With that, Alice Neeson returned to her office, and Thea Dawson led Trent Lewis outside. At the door, Thea Dawson offered Bronson Malone an open pack of Pagoda cigarettes. Uncle Malone, my father doesn't smoke, and since it's opened, I can't return it to the supply and marketing cooperative. Please take it, Uncle Malone. Bronson Malone refused, sincerely saying, if your father doesn't smoke, you can give it to someone else. Child, this money is your parents' hard-earned money. Give it to me when you get a job at the factory. Then, I'll definitely accept it. Then it's settled. Before leaving, she deliberately took out the 2 coins and 3 industrial coupons Alice Neeson had given her. A palm-sized bottle of honey isn't worth 2 coins and 3 coupons. You know, Alice gave me extra because she saw I wasn't well off. Uncle Malone, could you please return the money and coupons to Alice for me? Bronson Malone chuckled, it's all right, if she gave it to you, keep it. All right, your home is far from here, go on back now. It wasn't that she was afraid of danger, but walking under the scorching summer sun was a torment. Thea Dawson blushed, I gave Alice the honey to thank her, I didn't expect to receive money. Bronson Malone chuckled, her grandmother likes honey tea, if you really want to thank her, bring some more honey to her house. Yes, sir. Leaving the textile factory, Trent Lewis asked in a low voice, Sister, you aren't really going to spend 30 coins to study accounting, are you? Thea Dawson replied, do you know how much the textile factory accountants earn? I don't know, do you? Thea Dawson said, of course I do, the monthly salary seems to be 30 coins, plus food rations and various industrial coupons, and they also distribute goods during holidays and festivals. In addition, fabric is currently very difficult to buy, and the textile factory is where fabric is produced. As long as she works here, she will definitely be able to get some defective fabric later. Of course, she wouldn't tell Trent these things. Trent Lewis exclaimed, but can you guarantee you'll pass the exam? If someone teaches me, I have an 80% chance of passing. Trent Lewis didn't say anything more. Thea Dawson went to the bookstore to buy an accounting book. At the bookstore, 2 people were chatting, so engrossed in their conversation that before she could even say what book she wanted, they said they didn't have it. Thea Dawson asked angrily, such a big bookstore doesn't even have an accounting book. The taller person glanced at Thea Dawson, then said to the shorter girl, "Come find me after work, and we'll go to the state-run restaurant for lunch." The young saleswoman, Abigail Morgan, nodded, and after seeing the person off, she turned around to organize the books, completely ignoring Thea Dawson. "I want to buy a book, can't you hear me?" Abigail Morgan said irritably, "We don't have it." "Go away, if you want to buy a book, go somewhere else." Thea Dawson scoffed and said, "This is the only bookstore in the whole county, if you don't let me buy it here, where do you expect me to go?" Abigail Morgan picked up a feather duster and swept the dustless drawer. "Buy it wherever you like, we don't have it here." That arrogant look made one want to curse her out. Thea Dawson saw an accounting book displayed on the shelf behind. Suppressing her anger, she said, "Isn't that an accounting book?" A country bumpkin dared to scold her. Abigail Morgan snorted and said, "That book is already reserved, it's not for sale." After saying that, she deliberately glared at Thea Dawson, then put the book on display in the upper cabinet, making Thea Dawson's face flush with anger. Trent Lewis, seeing the tense atmosphere, pulled Thea Dawson and said, "Cousin, forget it, let's go back." Thea Dawson's face was cold as she retorted, "You say it's reserved. Fine, then tell me, who reserved it?" An accounting book wasn't some rare tome that needed a reservation. Even if it were, it shouldn't be on the shelf. It was clear they were withholding it because she was a country bumpkin. Abigail Morgan sneered, "Who do you think you are? Get out. If you don't leave, I'll call the police." Trent Lewis was anxious, his palms sweating. Thea Dawson, unafraid, yelled back, "Go ahead, call the police. I'll wait right here for them. My family's been poor farmers for 5 generations. I'd like to see what they'll arrest me for. I just want to buy a book." These times weren't kind to intellectuals, capitalists, or landlords, but they were relatively good for the poor and lower middle-class peasantry. Her status gave her leverage. She wasn't afraid to speak her mind, not even to some shop assistants, let alone their superiors. Abigail Morgan gaped. Weren't country folk supposed to tremble at the mere mention of the police? Why wasn't this village girl scared? At that moment, a woman in her 30s emerged from the back. After learning what happened, she placed the accounting book in front of Thea Dawson and said, 20 mao. 1 book coupon. Thea Dawson's eyes widened. You need a coupon for a book? She knew scarce goods like oil, meat, and water heaters required coupons, but she never imagined needing one for a book. The woman's tone was even. "Miss, we require book coupons for all purchases here. It's the rule, for everyone." Thea Dawson, realizing she wouldn't get the book today, was deeply disappointed. Abigail Morgan, seething, couldn't resist a snide remark, "Look at this, someone who doesn't even know you need a coupon for a book these days." Thea Dawson, about to leave, turned back and walked up to the saleswoman, tilting her head back as she scoffed, "You're so clever, why are you stuck selling books? With your attitude, you'll be stuck here forever." When the factory system changed, these livelihoods were downgraded. Abigail Morgan, furious and embarrassed that Thea Dawson dared to look down on her, spat, "I earn wages and get rations. What does a peasant like you?" The older woman, sensing trouble, interrupted sharply, "Shaoli, that's enough." Since she couldn't get the book anyway, Thea Dawson decided not to hold back. "Let me remind you, the food you eat is grown by us. You eat food we trade for with our blood and sweat, yet you look down on us. Your heart is blacker than any landlord or capitalist out there." Abigail Morgan's face paled. The older saleswoman, her heart pounding, fearing what Thea Dawson might say next, quickly thrust the book into her hands. "Take it, miss. Just 20 mao. Consider the coupon her apology." Thea Dawson, seeing the advantage, tossed the 20 mao into the drawer, grabbed the book, and left. After Thea Dawson was gone, Shaoli protested, "Sister Amanda, I didn't agree to give her my book coupon." The woman called Sister Amanda, fuming, replied, you don't have to. But I'll report exactly what happened to the supervisor. Abigail Morgan's expression shifted. Amanda, I apologize. I'll withdraw my vote. Trent Lewis, feeling Thea Dawson had been overly assertive, asked after leaving the bookstore, "Cousin, aren't you scared?" "Scared of what? Do you think they'll eat me?" Cousin, can we go home now?" "Not yet. One accounting book wasn't enough, and the bookstore offered nothing else." Thea Dawson decided to try her luck at the library. After asking directions, she found it. Upon entering, she saw a silver-haired man in gray clothes standing on a chair, organizing books. The care with which he handled them told Thea Dawson he loved books. The man, seeing them, said gently, "You two sit down and rest for a bit. Let me finish organizing this shelf." Thea Dawson smiled. "Sir, please don't rush. Our house isn't far." The man replied kindly, "All right. If you're bored, you can pick a book to read, but be careful not to damage it." "Thank you, sir." Thea Dawson, without hesitation, scanned the lower shelves and picked up an economics book. Seeing Trent Lewis peering over, she asked, "Do you know what this is?" "Probably one of those accounting books you want." Thea Dawson chuckled and shook her head. "No, it's economics." "What's economics?" Thea Dawson spoke seriously. "It's the study of different economic activities and their relationships, as well as their operational and developmental laws. It's incredibly important. Economics is the lifeblood of a nation." Trent Lewis, though confused, listened. The man on the chair glanced down at them. Thea Dawson smiled. "Cousin, if you take my advice, you'll join Tammy Dawson for lessons when you have free time." Trent Lewis had no interest in literacy. "I'm in the mountains. I understand everyone there. It's you, I can't understand a word you say." Before Thea Dawson could respond, he quickly added, "Cousin, I'll wait outside for you." He couldn't stop Thea Dawson anyway, and he certainly wouldn't dare try. He'd just listen to whatever she said. But once home, he'd tell his mother and father. Whether Dylan Dawson and Holly Lewis could stop her wasn't his concern. Thea Dawson smiled. Go ahead. Once she had a job, the elders would change their minds. They'd have to learn, whether they wanted to or not. Kelly Mack, having finished a shelf, stepped down and saw Thea Dawson engrossed in the economics book. "Young lady, have you studied economics before?" She had taken economics in college, but only scratched the surface. Thea Dawson gently closed the book, a little embarrassed. "I've studied Principles of Economics before. I especially remember a quote by Marshall, the British economist. Economics is the study of wealth, it is also a study of mankind. Sadly, my mind is rather dull, so I don't understand much, no matter how insightful it is. Nowadays, many kids her age think reading is useless, and even high school and college students rarely pick up these dry, boring economics books." Moreover, despite Thea Dawson's ragged clothes, her bright eyes couldn't help but impress Kelly Mack. "Who taught you this?" "This must have been taught by someone, and a scholar at that. Ordinary folks wouldn't understand these things." Thea Dawson replied, "Granny Daisy in my old village used to read. She taught me all this." Kelly Mack asked excitedly, "Where is she now?" "She passed away 5 years ago. It was thanks to her persuading the headmaster that I was able to get my junior high diploma." The elementary school headmaster was a compassionate man, and he agreed when Thea Dawson approached him. The junior high headmaster initially refused, but Granny Daisy's intervention changed his mind. Kelly Mack was astonished. "You mean you were homeschooled?" Thea Dawson asked, "Uncle, I'm here to borrow some books. Is that all right?" Kelly Mack found this child truly unfathomable. So many children with opportunities wouldn't study, yet this girl studied on her own and even earned a junior high diploma. Kelly Mack admired such diligent and ambitious children, and his attitude towards Thea Dawson grew warmer. Of course. But you need a letter of introduction from your work unit or production team to make a library card, then you can borrow books. Thea Dawson was overjoyed. Getting a letter of introduction from Captain Dawson wouldn't be difficult. Do you have any accounting books? I'd like to borrow some. She didn't dare mention specific titles. More than a decade separated the two eras, and the books she'd read might not even exist yet. Besides, accounting was relatively simple now, not as strictly regulated as it would become later. Hearing this, Kelly Mack glanced outside and lowered his voice. We have the Encyclopedia of Accounting and Advanced Accounting, but they're quite difficult. Are you interested? Thea Dawson, ecstatic, nodded. Yes, very much so. Encyclopedia of Accounting was written by Rochelle, and Advanced Accounting by Dixie, both British authors. She hadn't expected to find these foreign books in this library. Kelly Mack went inside and quickly located the two books. Thea Dawson took them, glanced through the pages, then pulled her household registration and junior high diploma from her bag and placed them on the table. She said earnestly, "Uncle, I'll leave these here. Could you let me borrow these two along with economics? I'll definitely return the day after tomorrow with a letter of introduction to make a library card." Kelly Mack was fond of this bright, studious, and hard-working child. He smiled and said, "I can let you use my card temporarily, but you can only borrow one book." It was a shame the university entrance exams had been abolished. With her knowledge, this child would definitely have gotten into university. Perhaps they might even have met on campus. Sadly, such thoughts were now futile. Thea Dawson patted her head. "One is enough, one is perfectly fine." Kelly Mack accepted Thea Dawson's junior high diploma and looked it over. Then, he took out his library card to register the loan, asking as he did so, "Why did you suddenly decide to borrow accounting books?" Thea Dawson waited for him to finish registering, then softly said, "The textile mill is hiring accountants. This time, they aren't requiring a city household registration, and my qualifications fit perfectly. It's a rare opportunity, so I want to try." Such an opportunity was truly a stroke of luck. Thea Dawson even felt her luck improving, otherwise, how could she have encountered such an opportunity and registered at the last minute? Kelly Mack suddenly understood, but looked at Thea Dawson with some hesitation. Many people have applied for the accounting position at the textile mill this time, including those with years of experience. Are you sure you can do it? Thea Dawson replied, "As long as they select based on merit, I'm confident I'll pass. If there's something shady going on, then I'll just have to accept it." Seeing her confidence, Kelly Mack reassured her, "Don't worry, my dear. This recruitment will be fair and transparent. If you're among the top 3 in the written exam and practical accounting test, you'll definitely be hired." Thea Dawson initially wanted to ask Kofi Dawson about this. Unfamiliar with anyone there, she didn't dare ask others casually, while Kofi Dawson, working at the transport company, had access to information. But now, it seemed she needn't bother him. Kelly Mack also explained the reason to Thea Dawson. It turned out that half a month ago, the deputy factory manager in charge of asset management and sales was arrested for embezzlement, bribery, and misconduct. His wife, the deputy head of the finance department, had, relying on her husband's influence, over the years, overridden the department head and hired 3 people. These 3 knew nothing about accounting and didn't bother to learn. Earlier this year, the last person in the department who knew accounting retired, leaving all the work to Hakwak Khan. This had led to a strained relationship between Hakwak Khan and the deputy factory manager. After the deputy factory manager's arrest, his wife was also implicated. Hakwak Khan immediately transferred the 3 individuals she had hired to the workshop. Then, during a management meeting, he argued vehemently for open recruitment of accountants. Even children of officials or relatives of leaders had to take the exam and be in the top 3 to be accepted. The newly appointed deputy factory manager also supported Ha Kwak Khan, which was why the textile mill had this special recruitment drive. Thea Dawson wondered, when I registered today, I saw an accountant surnamed Tuong. He looked about 25 or 26. Could it be that he doesn't know accounting either? Kelly Mack chuckled, you're quite well informed. His name is Tuong Van Ton. He graduated from elementary school, then participated in saving collective property from a fire and was recommended by the commune for university. He graduated last year and was assigned to the textile mill. Thea Dawson heard the helplessness and sorrow in his words. Indeed, someone with only an elementary education going straight to university was a blatant disregard for education. But these were peculiar times, and he, caught in them, dared not speak out. Uncle, why didn't they send him to the workshop? Someone like that wouldn't even understand the ledgers, let alone manage accounts. Having him in the finance department was just for show, he'd be better off in the factory, at least he could do some actual work. Kelly Mack told her, at that time, the finance department just had an accountant retire. They thought a student handling the books wouldn't be a problem, but nobody expected him to understand nothing. I don't know why they didn't send him down to the factory this time. Thea Dawson immediately understood. He must have found someone to back him up, preventing the dean from firing him. Having borrowed the book and made acquaintance with a kind, good-natured old man, Thea Dawson felt this trip had been fruitful. Before leaving, Thea Dawson bowed slightly to Kelly Mack, "Sir, thank you." She still had to prepare book slips to buy more accounting books. Only by understanding the accounting methods of this era could she achieve high scores, but this wasn't urgent. Kelly Mack quickly helped her up. "Young lady, what are you doing?" "I just lent you a book, I can't bear such a grand gesture." Thea Dawson shook her head and said, "You don't know, sir. Just now, I went to the bookstore to buy an accounting book, and the salesperson, seeing my shabby clothes, mocked me, calling me a country bumpkin, and refused to sell me the book. Only by being in their shoes can one understand how difficult life is for people at the bottom of society. Not only do they lack food and clothing, but they are also looked down upon by those who call themselves city folk. Therefore, they all yearn to leave the countryside and work in the city, but it's not easy to get out." Kelly Mack, having experienced the warmth and coldness of human relationships over the years, comforted her, "My dear, don't mind them." Thea Dawson's temper wasn't that good either. She raised her head and said, "No, the more you don't say anything to such people, the more arrogant they become. I told that person, you'll be stuck as a salesperson your whole life, while I will be someone you look up to in the future." Kelly Mack gave her a thumbs up. "You're absolutely right. Your future is limitless, while she'll be stuck in that bookstore her whole life. So, don't waste your time on such people. Not only intelligent and hardworking, but also courageous and decisive, her future prospects are boundless." Coming out of the library, Trent Lewis asked, "Cousin, what were you talking about with that old man? You talked for quite a while." After saying this, Trent Lewis immediately regretted it. He wouldn't understand the topic of their conversation even if she told him. It was strange, before, although his cousin was smart, she rarely spoke. Now, her little mouth chattered like a llama, and he couldn't even get a word in. Thea Dawson smiled and said, "His last name is Lewis. He's a very good person. He just told me about the situation at the textile factory. He said that this recruitment is open, and as long as I can rank in the top 3, I'm sure to be hired." "Then you've got to work hard, sis." Thea Dawson said, "Trent, didn't you say yesterday that you got 10 caddies of honey? I want to ask Grandma and Uncle to spare 2 caddies for me to give as a gift. Do you think they'll agree?" Trent Lewis scratched his head and said, "I don't know if you ask me. How about this, I'll go back after lunch. If Grandma agrees, I'll bring it to you tomorrow." He felt that his grandmother and father would agree, as it was related to her future. However, he still had to ask them, so Trent Lewis didn't dare to promise.